All right, so here you can see our agenda for today. We're going to have Dr. Tina Jackson, our Assistant Commissioner, kind of welcome everyone and give some remarks. Then we're going to move into new sections of the RFA. We're going to talk about the evidence tiers. We're going to talk about the application parts, cover page certifications, what the submission requirements look like, and then again, we're going to have time for plenty of questions at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, Dr. Tina Jackson, our Assistant Commissioner in the Division of Workforce Education at the Coordinating Board, and she's going to welcome you all and give a few remarks.
Good morning, colleagues. So good to see all of you. We're excited to have all of you with us today. Welcome to the Carl D. Perkins Equity, Access, and Opportunity Program webinar. We are pivoting and shifting our focus to think broadly about how we can serve students, raising the bar to include an attainment goal also for 35 to 64-year-olds who need to reskill and upskill to compete in today's economy. We are also focusing in, as you all know, on short-term credentials and workforce credentials. We are ready to accelerate together, and that's what this workshop is all about. We know the importance of reaching our students who have stopped out and didn't complete their post-secondary credential. And so we are focusing in also to ensure that we reach that population across the state. And our goal ultimately is to make sure that as we move forward as a state, we are strengthening our talent pipeline and ensuring that Texans are prepared for our labor market needs. I'm so excited that all of you all are with us today. And we as a division are excited to partner with you to move this work forward, to continue to raise the bar, and to continue to do things, innovatively speaking, to make sure that as we move forward, our students are as prepared as they can be. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mindy.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for those remarks. All right, moving along. So this first section of the webinar is going to be an introduction to the RFA. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the RFA yet, which is out on the website, it was posted on March 1st, you're going to find that this particular RFA looks similar to other Perkins RFAs. So right now we're going to talk about the innovative things that make this RFA a little more unique. So in section 1.2, the synopsis of the program, you're going to notice that this is a competitive grant, as other leadership projects have been. You're going to see that the funds support high quality evidence-based programs for student equity. So equity is the big component of this RFA. And the purpose of it is to increase equitable access to CTE programs and equitable opportunities for success. And of course, the target audience is new and current students with documented barriers to attaining high value credentials. In RFA Section 5, the application process, you'll see some new components here that you haven't seen in our previous RFAs. For one, all of the application materials, the performance evaluation plan, budget, and required signature pages are found on the website. These will not be in the Perkins Grant Portal. This particular program will not utilize that platform at all. Here provided on the screen is the website that directs you to the equity part of our website. So if you're familiar with the Carl D. Perkins webpage on the Coordinating Board website, when you go there, the equity initiative has its own area that you click on and find all the forms that you need. Additionally, we have a new email address associated with this RFA, and all documents and correspondence will be sent to this particular email address, and that's perkins.equity@highered.texas.gov. And something unique to this particular program is that the applications will be reviewed by two teams, since it introduces the evidence-based grant-making model in Texas. So there will be a review team for applications, and there will be a review team for the evidence tiers as well. So in RFA Section 7, Program Description, Awards to institutions that design evidence-based programs for students in the Perkins 9 special populations categories, which I'm sure that you all are familiar with, but they are listed here. One of the goals is to advance sustainable evidence-based approaches to equitable access and opportunity for CTE students and target audiences. And here are two general requirements of the grant. It's designed to make significant scalable impact on the recruitment and support of students in target audiences, and sustainable after the grant period toward an ongoing impact on the institution's current and future students in target audiences. So these are very specific to this equity initiative. You should be creating or proposing to create programs that remove barriers, mitigate barriers, if you will, for CTE students, and giving emphasis to Perkins 5 special population students. In Section 8 of the RFA, this is where the introduction of the Texas evidence-based grant-making model is introduced. It is very important that you pay close attention to Section 8.1, which is the glossary of evidence terms. And then in Section 8.4, the evidence tier definitions and requirements. And so all of the different tiers that you can apply to are listed in this section, and an in-depth explanation of what's required for these tiers is provided for you. And then in Section 9, instructions for completing the application. You'll want to read through those and read the instructions for how you submit the cover page, how you determine your evidence tiers, what the programmatic narrative requires, and additionally the budget. All of those things live in Section 9 of the RFA. And so as we move into our next slide, Mindy Nobles will hop on with us, and she will give you more information about our evidence tiers.
Good morning, everyone. And let me give you welcome to this webinar. I want to just cover a couple of points. It's about the programmatic application and the evaluation of the document. The evaluation will take place in two ways, as Stephanie has explained. There is the evaluation of the application itself. Now, this will be the primary evaluation. It covers the range of criteria that we believe to be significant for these applications. Please notice that 60% of the evaluation covers the quality of the project plan and the institution's demonstrated level of commitment. It's possible to earn 100 points for your programmatic evaluation. The tier evidence points, I want to point out, are bonus points. They will add to, but will not take away from the programmatic evaluation. And we'll cover the tier evidence tiers in just a second, the evidence tiers in just a second. And I'll point out that even though we have bonus points and not core points for the tier evidence levels, solid evidence is required, whatever your chosen tier. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. Next slide. With Appendix B, we've included a mock-up of the application with instructions and guidance. Now, because this RFA and this program have new features, we urge applicants to review RFA sections 5, 8, and 9 and Appendix B before completing the application. We also urge you to follow instructions on the application forms themselves carefully. And go on to the next slide. Now, on the next two slides, I'll review in brief the evidence-based tiers. I want to point out to you, however, here that you should review the February 19th webinar on evidence-based grant making for a comprehensive background on these evidence tiers. We urge you as well to you must use RFA section 9.2 with the evidence tree in selecting your evidence tier and developing evidence for your application. And next slide. Now, all tiers are based on evidence of programmatic effectiveness and post-grant period evaluations of outcomes with objective third-party evaluations holding the most weight. Now, Texas evidence-based grant making is new to the Perkins program. It's been an ongoing project at other state agencies, and the coordinating board has joined that statewide initiative with the Perkins program. We expect most applications to fall, given that we're just getting started with this, into the new experience or program evidence tier of the 5 tiers. Now, I'll go over each of these in brief. New, the new evidence tier. Historically, this is the territory of most leadership applications. We have a project proposal, an interesting one, for which there is no evidence of past effectiveness and no outcomes evaluations because it will be new. Possible evidence may rest with internal data showing the potential for this project to make an impact. Additionally, general research on the project's focus. By general research, I mean if you're looking at how childcare impacts single parents' success, there may be studies out there. There won't be something about your program, but there may be general studies out there. And let me go on to then the experience evidence tier. In this, an applicant seeks to scale an existing program for which objective programmatic data and outcomes evaluations are not yet available. So your evidence would be anecdotal, success stories, for example. I want you please to note that a cited program must have been operating for at least a year. So if you're seeking to scale a project that you can provide anecdotal evidence for, it must have been in operation at least 1 year. And now I'll move on to the performance tier. At this tier, the applicant seeks to scale a past or existing program or programs for which local outputs and outcomes evaluation data are available. Historical data will show that the program has had the intended effect during its operation, and follow-up evaluation shows positive outcomes post-participation in the program. Now, please note that a program at this tier must have been conducted within the past 5 years, and that historical output and outcomes data must be available for at least 2 years. You must have 2 years worth of data and be able to cite those in your proposal. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, the high and moderate evidence tiers are for applicants seeking to replicate programs that can be found in one of the national databases cited in the RFA. Perhaps we will not have a high or moderate evidence tier application with this first round. If we do not, we are just fine with that in this round. These programs, high or moderate evidence tier programs have been studied using a comparison group and statistical validation. Programs in these databases, moreover, have had positive and meaningful outcomes with documentation that it's the program itself and not other factors that are the primary cause of those outcomes. And let's go on to the next slide.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the application parts, the cover page, and the certification pages. So first of all, the application, so the application's available on our website that has been mentioned here a few times, and it is a fillable PDF. So you will go in and just fill out the fields there. It allows for electronic signatures, and you will attach that, the project evaluation plan, which we'll talk about, and the budget forms together in one email and send it to the perkins.equity email address. The email must have the subject line application and then the institution's name in the subject line. It's important to remember that the narrative portions of the application must be separated by hard returns into paragraphs for readability. Applications submitted without paragraphing will be returned for correction. So we ask that you do not put long paragraphs, that you separate your thoughts and make it very readable with hard returns. And there's also no word limit for the narrative sections. Within the PDF, you'll notice that as you fill out the sections, the scrolling feature is on. So if you use the scroll bar, you'll be able to see any text that goes out of the text box and continues down. So don't feel limited to any type of word count in those areas. So the performance evaluation plan is similar to the PEPs of previous Perkins Leadership grants. I'm going to show an example on the next slide. And within that Excel spreadsheet on the first tab, there's notes to help you fill out your PEPs. So, and in that notes section, it mentions, you don't have to fill, you're going to see at the bottom, there's goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4. If there's more goals, you can add more tabs. If there's more objectives for each goal, say you're filling in goal 1 and you're going to have more than one objective, you're going to see that only objective 1 is there. You can copy and paste that into down below that and continue your next objective. And here is just an example of what that looks like in that Excel sheet. So you're going to add in your goal and you're going to add in your objectives, the measure, the data. And then just like previous Perkins Leadership grants, you're going to have your activities and strategies and the timeline for those. So it looks just like what was in the portal. It's just really in Excel format. You'll see here that it says objective 1 and it's highlighted. You'll want to make sure that you have that objective in there for your goal. And this is where we want to emphasize that you can have more than one objective for the goal. Just copy and paste this item here and put it below, and then just keep moving forward with objectives if you have more than one for each goal. The budget form is additionally an Excel sheet that's on the website. It looks just like what you see in the Perkins portal as far as grant formatting is concerned, with schedules A, B, D, E, F, and G, and then the CB 100. It's important to note that capital expenditures that would typically go on Schedule C are unallowable for this program. There's not a need in this equity program to purchase capital equipment because this is more so a grant for student supports, programmatic areas to help mitigate those barriers and make access more equitable. Additionally, there's also a notes tab on the Excel spreadsheet to help folks fill that out as well. You'll note there that in each, on the example that I'm going to show you on the next page, I believe we pre-built in 10 lines for each schedule. So you can just copy and add additional lines if you need to on each schedule. There are also formulas built in to this spreadsheet to help you add across one schedule, and then also those totals go into the CB 100. So if you're adding lines, you just want to make sure that your formulas are adding in your added lines and you're not leaving anything out. And we ask that you don't manipulate the formulas. We didn't want to lock down the spreadsheet because we want you to be able to add lines through the various schedules. But the CB 100 should calculate everything for you. There's no need to change that. So it should just be very straightforward. Here's an example of what Schedule A looks like on the Excel sheet. So as you can see, it's exactly what you have seen in the portal. You're going to have your line number, the title position, the percent of time on the project, and then the amount. And again, that total box at the bottom will be totaling every single line and giving you a total, which will also has a formula built for it to automatically show up in the CB 100. And then the cover page and required certifications. So something that's neat about these is they're all fillable PDFs. You don't have to worry about printing it out, getting signatures and scanning it back in. You can simply just use the fillable PDFs for the cover page, the certification regarding lobbying, and the FFATA, and it does accept electronic signatures. And those will all be emailed together, just as the application, performance evaluation plan, and budget. We're going to go over important dates here in a minute of when all these things are due. So your cover page and required certifications will be submitted at the same time as well to the perkins.equity email address. It's important that you use the subject line required signature pages and the institution name. And as I mentioned, these are all fillable PDFs that are available on the Equity website. And I'm going to turn this back over to Mindy.
Good morning again, everyone. And I'll cover submission requirements in one or two slides. If you'll go on to the next slide, please, Stephanie. And here you see the comprehensive submission requirements for everything you will submit to the coordinating board. In general, all documents must be transmitted to the Equity email address, which you see here. It is very important that you follow subject line title requirements for each email transmission. You'll make two separate transmissions. You'll transmit the application, the performance evaluation plan, and the budget forms together. These are due no later than June 14th by midnight. And following that, within the week, you'll have your second submission, the cover page and the certification forms. These must be submitted together by June 21st, again by 11:59 p.m., effectively midnight. Please, we urge you to follow the subject line title requirements for each one of these submissions. It is by this means that we're going to know you submitted, and we know which of your submissions these are. We encourage you to make certain your submissions are complete. Anything missing from one of the two submissions may hinder evaluation and potentially result in denial of application if we are not able to get missing forms from you in a timely way. And let's go on to the next slide.
Mindy, I just want to point out real quick, that email address is missing Texas. So to not cause confusion, it's perkins.equity@highered.texas.gov.
We will correct that before we post these slides. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, this will be posted with the correct address on that page. And here you see the full application calendar as published in the RFA section 2.3. Now, what I want to point out about this calendar is that it's really a dual purpose calendar. It does provide dates for institutions to follow, inquiry deadline, applications, app cover page and certifications. It also provides the coordinating board's schedule of follow through. And this is a guarantee to you that we will evaluate applications in a timely way, provide notifications on a certain date. We will work with you following notification to negotiate final contracts, and we will process notice of grant awards by date certain, August 31st, so that you can begin operation on September 1. So those are, here you see submission requirements in a nutshell, as it were. And we can move on to the next section, Stephanie.
All right.
And I'll say here, well, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say that we have covered our content quite rapidly. We want to leave plenty of time for questions. I'll turn it over to Stephanie to give instructions for the Q&A, and I will stop video now for a moment.
So now we're going to move into the Q&A portion of the webinar, and I'm working on now allowing folks to unmute themselves and use the raise hand functionality if you'd like to ask questions. So if you will just give me a second, if you have a question, please pop those into the Q&A feature if you don't wish to speak. I do see that there's one there. So just give me a second and I'm going to get everyone able to unmute themselves and we will move forward. Okay, I do believe that you can unmute yourselves if you would like to. So if you have a question, use the raise hand function and we will allow you to talk and go from there, okay? I do see that we have one question in the Q&A, Mindy. It says, one of the ideas that we had was increasing the use of technology to improve accessibility. Recently, the college purchased technology on a limited basis. If we would want to scale this technology to select CTE programs, would this be a supplanting issue?
I would first ask Mr. Hernandez, are we talking about scaling this technology to select CTE programs as part of an equity proposal? So this is specific to a potential proposal under this RFA?
And I'm going to allow you to talk, Heriberto. Give me just a second. Let me find you on the attendee list.
Yes.
So you can unmute yourself.
Yes, good morning. Yes, Ms. Nobles, that would be the intent, is to increase both equity and accessibility. Right. So one of the issues that we have here at the college is that it's difficult for some students to get on campus, right? So we'd like to expand on providing, quality online instruction, hybrid modalities. But recently, the college purchased some technology where in your live classrooms, you can have a special projector that records the lecture, but also students can log in to the actual classroom while the lecture is going on, right? So it eliminates the need for the student to actually go to campus. We have a lot of small little rural areas around the Laredo area that have a difficult time getting onto campus, right? So if we can provide that mode of instruction to them, facilitated through the technology in the classroom with maybe a laptop for the student, some sort of access port. I think that would increase the accessibility, and the equity issue as well.
I will speak to this in a couple of ways, Heriberto, and please call me Mindy. Let's just be Perkins folks here together. For one thing, applicants will want to make certain that projects submitted for funding are singling out, are targeting special populations students in such a way that they work with students in the target group, that they are providing services to those students in ways that mitigate their specific barriers. If you're serving the general CTE student population and cannot document that you are assisting students in the target population in ways that you can evaluate outcomes for, you're probably looking at funding this very worthy expansion of technology for accessibility to programs through your general Perkins grant.
Okay.
Now, let me speak to this. I've worked on this same project at a previous college, and I know exactly the student population you're dealing with. Back in the day, most of them still had dial-up access on top of everything else. And not only did they have a difficult time getting online, they had difficulty getting to class at times. So what you're talking about, you should think through very well in terms of a targeted approach to mitigating specifically special populations access. So does that provide you sufficient guidance for your question? Now let me answer the second part about supplanting. When a college can document that they have spent this money in the past, but this expenditure for what appears to be the same or similar item or items would not take place without this funding. In other words, old funding has lapsed, or is for a new and targeted effort that is not a continuation of a previous effort. They should be able to document that they don't already have this in a college budget somewhere, or that it is not an ongoing expense that they are seeking to transfer to Perkins funds. That guidance in general stands, and I think it provides you with some parameters here. Now that said, have I responded to your question? Do you have a follow-up?
No, you pretty much clarified it, Mindy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And here, Belcher, I'd like to add, Kristen from Lamar State College Orange put in the Q&A that their college has done the same venture, but was not able to implement to most impact CTE program. So she just added that note in there for you. Okay, we do have a question now from Julia. Will these Perkins Equitable Access and Opportunity programs be funded year by year and therefore require annual applications by institutions?
Julia, this is our first, this is our inaugural issuance of an RFA for this specific new pullout program funded with Perkins Leadership programs, Perkins Leadership funds, I'm sorry. We do anticipate now that we will continue this program. Equitable access and opportunity for success is a statutory requirement with accountability both for the state and for institutions. We will give increasing attention to equity, student equity for CTE programs in our Perkins, general Perkins program. So unless we encounter factors that would indicate otherwise, we intend to continue this program. Now, grants are fundable for 2 years under this program. We expect colleges to be able to fully develop projects, and if they need to apply for a continuation grant, should be able to do so. Just as with the general leadership RFA. Does that respond to your question? If it does not, please post a follow-up in the Q&A.
Hi, Mindy. Julia Wilson here at Dallas College.
Julia.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yes, yes. So you know how technology is sometimes with the stream. Soon as you said the number of years, I couldn't hear it. So could you repeat the number of years it would be funded for?
Each of these applications, each of these projects, if funded, will be fundable for up to 2 years. Colleges
Okay.
may propose 1 year or 2 year projects. We also expect to issue subsequent RFAs unless mitigating factors indicate otherwise. I don't anticipate that scenario, but we always have to indicate it as a possibility. We expect this pullout project, this target project for equity, to operate over time like the general leadership RFA.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Rose has a question, and I'd be happy to answer this. She asked, can we apply for both Perkins Basic Grant and the Perkins Equitable Access and Opportunity Program? The answer to that is yes. The Perkins Basic Grant is a formula grant that each institution receives allocation of our Perkins dollars that we get from TEA and the federal government. So the Perkins Basic Grant will always be there. The Perkins Equitable Access and Opportunity Program is underneath our leadership grant, our competitive grant. So yes, the answer to that is that you may apply for both. And Rose, let me unmute you and just make sure that that answers your question thoroughly.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. All right, we have another question, Mindy. Can funding be used to hire staff who focus on recruiting and supporting special populations to organize events and market to special populations?
Thank you for that question, Maricela. Under the project, yes, staff may appear on Schedule A who will work to develop the program you're implementing. Staff for continuation of the project, in other words, for sustainability, for ongoing impact. The college would need to be able to institutionalize those positions and continue to scale the project after the grant period. Our intention with these grants, with the evidence base required, and with follow-up evaluation, some of which the coordinating board may do independently. What we intend is to create programs that continue over time, that can go themselves into a set of available data that show effectiveness for these sorts of programs and that provide models for others to possibly replicate. We don't intend for these to be one and done projects where you implement it. It's on operation and available and you'll present on it. But then once the funding ends, the program wanes. If that answers your question. In short, yes, you may have staff on Schedule A of your program budget. You should have a good sustainability plan for continuing the functions that those staff perform.
Thank you, Ms. Noble.
Thank you, Maricela.
So at this time, we don't have any further questions, Mindy. Again, if you would like to ask a question, just raise your hand or pop that question into the Q&A, and we'll be happy to assist you.
Now, we will keep this webinar open for the scheduled time. If we have further questions arise, we do want to answer them. And I see we have one now.
Yes, JJ asked if the presentation is recorded, and yes, it is. We're recording now. And we are going to post this and the presentation slide very, very soon, in addition with the evidence-based webinar that we had in February. The next question is from Henry. Do you know how many projects will be funded?
No, we do not. We're in new territory, just as you all are. It's one reason we were reluctant to put word limits on the different response boxes on the application. We're discovering what's out there, and we will adapt accordingly. We have no expectation for the number of grants that we will fund.
All right, the next question is from Julia. There was also an inquiry if this grant could fund activities, conferences related to projects for special populations.
I would say if these are activities, of course, directed at your target population, those special populations that do participate in this program, yes, of course. Now, conferences are, I'm uncertain about the meaning here, and Julia may want to unmute again. Are you speaking about a conference to include colleges to discuss this issue? Maybe partnerships you take on? Or are you speaking about conferences for students? Stephanie, is Julia able to unmute?
Here I am.
There she is. Okay.
I was actually typing. So I was thinking of, say, career awareness type conferences, conferences dealing with encouraging students for bachelor degree enrollment, you know, continuation in their CTA fields, things like that.
Again, as with another question, you would want to make certain that activities under this grant, including conferences, are provided to targeted special population students participating in the program. Given that you do that, yes, those two things sound as though they would be fundable. We would, of course, have to see your specific proposal. Always that caveat in answering these types of general questions. May I take the next question too, Stephanie?
Of course. Can a consortium submit? And Kristen, you're able to speak as well.
Kristen, we would welcome a consortium of colleges with one serving as the fiscal agent, applying for this grant. A regional consortium could ensure that impact is regional. So yes, we would be interested in seeing a consortium proposal, very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, the next question is from Luis. He's asking, how much is this grant for? So Luis, there is not a particular budget limit for this particular program. You will actually propose the amount that you're asking for in the application.
And justify that amount.
Yes.
We expect application amounts to vary. Any costs requested in that proposal should be fully justifiable. Should be fully justified. I see Anthony Garcia. Are programs required to partner from a regional approach, or are the projects independent? Anthony, we understand that with the nature of this new initiative and the fact that we are building over and above what colleges have done in the past to support student success for special populations. We recommend that your college may need to start small and work on something locally that can be scaled. Now, that said, a proposal is always stronger if it has a broader impact. In that way, regional partnerships, projects with colleges with similar needs wherever they are, strengthens an application. I can only give you those general guidelines. We will not deny applications that operate out of a single college as long as they are able to disseminate and as long as they are able to provide the evidence that supports the project and are able to sustain the project.
I think another note to add here, Mindy, and something that we've discussed is that we know that some colleges are further along in equity based programs or resources for students. They're a little further along than some of our more rural colleges who have less resources or for whatever reason, they've talked about equity and they've tried to implement equitable measures and they just haven't quite gotten there yet. And so we're hoping that this is an opportunity for them to be able to expand ideas and things that the college has talked about. And that might be more local. We want this to be sort of a growth area for a college. So, that's where these new program tiers come from. And, thinking about the types of resources you have, sort of like your own internal college journey, if you will, on this equity approach. And so, like Mindy has mentioned, your program is made stronger if it's scalable and you can disseminate regionally. But if it's a look at your institution because you just haven't quite gotten there, we definitely will take a look at those applications, and it's not a measure for denying your program. Anthony, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I like that point that you made. I think that, those collaborations, if one college is a little further than another, then it could be a learning and a growth experience for both, which could have a greater impact. So thank you. And I appreciate that. That did answer my question.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, Louise had a follow-up question. Follow-up would be how many years would it be for? So I'm guessing he had the question about the grant amount award. And so I guess the follow-up question is, would the funding be for how many ever years they want to have their program for, whether it's a 12-month or a 24-month?
And we have Shanna Drury. With respect to short-term credentials, credential programs, would you consider CE courses and programs that lead to credentials for students and not just credit-bearing programs? Shanna, as you're aware, with the basic RFA, we do require that any CE programs or courses funded meet that 360 contact hour threshold, which is the threshold where one has to apply for program approval. We have not had a good mechanism for ensuring that courses and programs that aren't in a college's inventory can be measured accurately with regard to expenditure of Perkins funds. Now, with this program, I'm going to say that the answer to your question is yes. If you are working with a targeted special populations program, and those participants can be tracked and measured and outcomes looked at post-grant period, you should be able to target specific programs, including CE programs for these targeted students. Does it answer your question? Would you like to ask a follow-up?
It does, Mindy. Thank you. I was thinking about phlebotomy, which, is 200 hours. It's not a 360 contact hour program. But if those programs were eligible, CNA, phlebotomy, medication aid, where we could tackle that population, that would be that's a population that needs to be targeted, is what I'm trying to say. And the funds would go to a very, useful, beneficial source if we could do that.
And again, we would have to look at the specific proposal, but I see no reason why, if the services are delineated clearly for the target population, we would not be able to fund such a program.
Okay, thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
Mindy, Anthony is asking if more than one proposal can be submitted.
We have not limited Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe the RFA limits colleges to one proposal. I didn't think so.
No, it doesn't.
I didn't think so. If you are sufficiently ambitious to develop 2 applications or 2 proposals, we will review both proposals. We will not force you to choose between one or the other.
Heriberto, you had your hand raised. Did you have another question?
Yeah, well, it was related to the CE, and I was just thinking if, like, in our college, there's certain CE programs that are articulated with our credit programs. So even though they don't reach that 360, I was just, wondering if we could use those programs, since they do align to our credit programs, and I'm pretty sure there's data there that we can track those particular students or those particular areas.
Again, the focus here is on student equity, which means equitable access to programs, and then equitable opportunity to succeed in those programs. With the focus on the students, you may target certain programs, whatever they are, to recruit those students into and serve a cohort of students within that program. That should be allowable, Heriberto. I cannot think of a reason why it would not be. And again, we would have to look at the application, but with the focus on the students to achieve good outcomes and measurable follow-up results on evaluation, it should be funded.
All right, Mindy, I'm not seeing any further questions. We have about 5 minutes left. I did throw up our contact slide for the webinar. So if you have any questions, you can contact Mindy or myself. Our information is available on the screen. You can also email the perkins.equity email address. And let's see, I think someone has their hand raised. Let me unmute you, Jennifer. Go ahead, Jennifer, with your question. You should be able to unmute. Jennifer, you should be able to speak. If you're speaking, we cannot hear you. You might want to type your question in the Q&A if you're having any type of audio issues.
And we'll give Jennifer a minute to type here.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
And
You are
Jennifer says yes. Go ahead and
Yeah.
type it out for us, or is Jennifer unmuted now?
I have unmuted her, yes.
Great. And we still cannot hear you, Jennifer.
Go ahead and type your question in the Q&A, Jennifer. We'll be happy to answer your question. She says page 7 of the RFA says eligible applicants should submit one fully developed application. I guess this might allude to multiple proposals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She said, however, we can submit more than one if we have multiple colleges.
Jennifer, are you perchance with Alamo colleges?
She's with Lone Star.
Okay, with Lone Star, okay. An individual college may submit its own application. A college should submit one application. A system with multiple colleges should be able to submit college by college. We're getting into gradations that we, did not consider when we put this application or this RFA together. But yes, I suppose that would be allowable under the language of the RFA. Now, what we do want are fully developed, well-considered applications that the college has bought into, that senior administration supports, that we know have a good chance for success and for sustainability. And I hope that that sufficiently answers your question and speaks to this issue for now. And we are coming to the end of our hour together. Good to know, Jennifer. Glad it answers your question. Colleagues, again, thank you for attending. I always rely on Perkins programs, two-year colleges eligible for Perkins grants, to be the innovative, dedicated lifeblood of CTE in this state. I thank you for attending today. I appreciate we all appreciate the wellspring of interest in this new program. This gives us and the state the opportunity to move student equity forward in a significant way. We will thank you again for attending today. We look very much forward to receiving applications between now and June. And we encourage you to ask questions in the meantime. You may always ask a question of your Perkins Grant advisor. You may certainly ask questions specifically of me or of Stephanie at any time. I thank you again, and we look forward to hearing from you with any follow-up questions that you may have, and we'll be promptly responsive to those questions. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for attending.